There's a moment that plays out in garages across America almost every single day. A customer walks in with their own oil filter, brand new, still in the box, bought 20 minutes ago. It's orange. And the mechanic looks at it, looks at them, and says some version of the same sentence. "I'm not putting that in your car. The filter is genuine, undamaged, the best-selling oil filter in the history of the American automobile. And the man whose entire job is engines refuses to touch it. Mechanics even have a nickname for this filter. 4 words. I'll tell you what they are in a few minutes because you need to earn them." The most trusted name in car care became the one part professionals turn away at the door. To find out, I did the only honest thing you can do to an oil filter. I cut it open. This is what's inside. See those 2 little discs at each end of the filter media? On most competing filters at this price point, those are stamped metal. On this one, they're cardboard, fiber, paper-based end caps bonded to the pleats. And your instinct right now is screaming that this is the whole story, that the cardboard is the crime. It isn't. That fiber end cap is either a perfectly sound engineering choice, or it's the symbol of everything that went wrong with this company, and by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which one it is. But you can't judge the object yet. First, you have to understand what the orange can use to mean, back when nobody, not even the mechanics, ever thought to cut one open. Providence, Rhode Island, 1932, the bottom of the Great Depression. 2 American chemists, Frederick Franklin and T. Edward Aldham, start a filter company, and the name they choose is hiding in plain sight. FR from Franklin, AM from the end of Aldham. Fram was never a slogan or an acronym for anything mechanical. It's just 2 chemists' surnames spliced together. Most drivers in America don't know that. Plenty of mechanics don't either. Those 2 names mattered because in 1932, an oil filter wasn't a routine part. On most cars, it was an option or a crude mesh screen that clogged and got ignored. Engines died young and they died dirty. What Franklin and Aldham brought to market was the easily replaceable filter element, a cartridge an ordinary driver could swap in a driveway. The real invention here was the habit itself, the reputation compounded for decades. Through the war years and into the boom, Fram filters ran on machines where a dead engine was a disaster. By the 60s, the orange box was in every parts store in America. Then came the masterstroke. 1971, a television commercial. A mechanic in coveralls, wiping his hands on a rag, looks straight into the camera and delivers one line, a line that becomes the most repeated sentence in the history of American automotive advertising.
Pay me now
or pay me later.
Pay me later.
Fram taught America the entire philosophy of preventive maintenance with that line. A $4 filter today or a $4,000 engine tomorrow. Your choice. Remember that line. Remember exactly who said it and to whom, because it's going to detonate at the end of this video. By the mid-1980s, Fram meant oil filter in the American mind the way Kleenex means tissue. And then, sometime around the year 2000, mechanics started doing to Fram exactly what I did at the start of this video. They started cutting them open. The internet did something that had never been possible before in the history of consumer products. Forums like Bob is the Oil Guy and then early YouTube let independent mechanics, retired engineers, and crowdsource the autopsy of a product, thousands of them, comparing notes. And when they went looking for a subject, they went straight for the biggest name on the shelf. They cut open the base model orange can. Then they cut open the similarly priced Wix, Purolator, and Motorcraft sitting right next to it. They found what I just showed you, cardboard end caps where competitors used metal, noticeably less pleated media. Nothing that guaranteed failure, but nothing that felt like the market leader either. And so, somewhere in the mid-2000s, the orange can earned the nickname that has followed it ever since, the orange can of death. The sharper accusation was never really about the cardboard, though. It was about the pattern. Fram's money was visibly going into shelf placement, television airtime, and racing sponsorships, while the contents of the cans seemed to get thinner every year. Mechanics started to feel that Fram had stopped building its reputation and started harvesting it. And the cruelest mechanism of all, every young mechanic gets taught on day one in the shop, never install a Fram. It gets passed down. It becomes tribal knowledge detached from any specific piece of evidence. The hate is inherited. That's how a market leader dies. But hold on. Look at whether the hate was actually deserved. The uncomfortable truth: fiber end caps are fine by themselves as a design choice. Independent teardowns and testing over 20 years keep reaching the same boring conclusion. The base orange can filter adequately for its price and its service interval. Millions of American engines, probably tens of millions, have lived long, uneventful lives on it. The death in Orange Can of Death is mostly folklore. It's a story mechanics tell each other, and the graveyard it implies never existed. So the cardboard on its own was never the disease. And now the twist that stays inside the filtration community. For years, Fram's premium line, the Ultra Synthetic, was rated by that same obsessive community, the same forum that christened the Orange Can as one of the best oil filters money could buy. Better than adequate, better than competitive. Elite. The manufacturer's own spec claimed over 99% efficiency at 20 microns, and independent enthusiasts who tore it apart found construction that outperformed most of the filters the Never Fram crowd recommended instead. Sit with that for a second. The company mechanics hated most was making one of the best filters in the world, which means Fram always knew how to build excellence. It simply chose to keep that excellence out of the one product the entire world judged it by. So the story was never about cardboard. The darker question is why, if the filters mostly worked, this company spent 20 years making choices that spent its own reputation like it was free money. To answer that, stop looking at the filter. Start looking at who owned it. There was a Fram brand, an asset, a line item, passed between conglomerates the way you pass a wrapped parcel at a birthday party. Suspect number 1, Bendix. Suspect 2, Allied, which absorbed Bendix in the 80s. Suspect 3, Allied Signal. Suspect 4, Honeywell, a corporation known for thermostats and jet engines, which inherited Fram in a 1999 merger and sold the auto parts business off to an overseas investment group in 2011. And suspect number 5, in 2019, a Cleveland-based aftermarket roll-up called First Brands Group. Half a century of owners. And none of them was a filter company. They were conglomerates, holding companies, investment vehicles, structures built to inherit trust and spend it down. In roughly a decade, some 25 of the most familiar names on the American parts shelf ended up under one roof. Buying that much that fast took a very specific mechanism. In one breath, off-balance sheet financing means borrowing money through separate entities that don't appear on your official books, so lenders looking at the company can't see how much debt actually exists. According to the US Department of Justice, First Brands ran that playbook from at least 2018 through 2025. Its founder, Patrick James, and his brother Edward allegedly built a network of shell entities with no real operations of their own, entities that borrowed against First Brands' inventory, then hid those loans from the company's senior lenders. Every dollar of that concealed debt had to be serviced by something, and that something over and over was the product. Under an owner like that, a 90-year-old brand becomes a thing you borrow against instead of a thing you invest in. The Orange Can's reputation, the trust built by 2 chemists in Providence and one 1971 television commercial, had quietly become collateral. Late September 2025, First Brands Group files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in federal court in Texas. A company reporting approximately $5 billion a year in sales, over $9 billion in liabilities, and in available cash at the moment of filing, $12 million. At a company selling $5 billion a year of the parts under your hood. Within months, federal prosecutors in New York indicted the founder, Patrick James, and his brother Edward on charges including conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. Prosecutors alleged that First Brands had sold its financing partners billions of dollars in customer receivables that didn't exist. Those are allegations, and the trials will decide them. The bankruptcy is a docket number, and the human cost landed in one specific place: Albion, Illinois. The Champion Laboratories plant, a core FRAM manufacturing site, closes permanently. Hundreds of workers, many with decades on the line, walk out of the building for the last time. Brands survive bankruptcies, the people and the knowledge inside those people don't. By spring 2026, the Orange Can was vanishing from shelves, and mechanics were filming the empty aisles. A filter manufacturer, Premium Guard, has since acquired the FRM brand out of the wreckage, so the Orange Can will come back, under a new owner. The can survives. What it means, that's the open question. This is the one sentence you're going to repeat to somebody tomorrow. For over 50 years from that 1971 commercial forward, Fram warned America, you can pay me now or pay me later. Skip the small maintenance today and you'll pay catastrophically tomorrow. Then its owners did precisely that to the company itself. They skipped the maintenance on the product, they harvested the trust, they borrowed against the name, and they ran the reputation the way an absentee landlord runs a rental. Cash it, don't fix it, move on. Which leaves the piece of cardboard I promised you a verdict on. The cardboard was a symptom, the first small, visible place where money stopped flowing into the product and started flowing out of it. The mechanics who cut open those cans were right to be suspicious of Fram. They just misread the evidence. They thought they'd found bad engineering. What they'd actually found was the fingerprint of ownership that had stopped caring. So next oil change, before the new filter goes on, pick it up. Look at it. Any brand. That part in your hand is a decision. How much somebody, somewhere, decided your engine was worth. Now you know how to read it. Because Fram was one of many names buried in this bankruptcy.